What is up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of the Oscars, the podcast that takes a look at the 2023 Oscars 24 minutes at a time. I am Ethan Semi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we are dancing the mask and servicing the composer while talking about Todd Field's Tar.
If you're here, then you already know who she is. Lydia Tarr is many things. As a conductor, Tarr began her career with the Cleveland Orchestra, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, until she at last arrived here at our own New York Philharmonic. In 2013, Berlin elected Tarr as its principal conductor, and she's remained there ever since. Lydia Tarr has also written music for the stage and screen. She is one of only 15 EGOTs, meaning those who have won all 4 major entertainment awards. Thank you for joining us, Maestro.
Thank you.
Set in the international world of Western classical music, the film centers on Lydia Tarr, widely considered one of the greatest living composer-conductors and the very first female director of a major German orchestra. Our coverage of the Oscars is continuing, but I just want to say really quickly, while reading that logline, I went to IMDb as per usual with our pod, and I always put the logline in there, and we always say, just so our listeners know what it is, right? And we are all aware. That line tells nothing about the movie. It is literally explaining who Lydia Tarr is, which I think is fascinating in terms of like the lore of Lydia Tarr, which we will absolutely be getting into. For those of you watching on YouTube, you already know we have a wonderful guest. For those of you listening and not watching the video, this is the introduction. Alden Diaz, welcome back to the podcast. Friend of the pod, prior guest. How are you doing, Alden? It is a pleasure to have you.
Well, hello, gentlemen. I want to begin by saying time is the thing. 24 minutes. Of a
you cannot
podcast.
start without me.
24 minutes. You can't start without Ethan and Ben.
You can't.
I'm really, really excited to be here for this one because I think this is, as we will discuss, what they crafted with Tar is a film that has, I think, a lot of really sharp and interesting, this is what it's about takes.
Yeah.
And I think that Field and the whole team are laughing, seeing all of them, because I think it's a film that says, "What is your take?" Not "This is our take." And I think that it's very, for as bombastic and intense as it is, it's also very open and flexible and wispy, and it's just an interesting cat for sure.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I will say, Todd Field was on The Big Picture a while back when Tar kind of came out, and did an interview with Sean Fennessy on there. And we'll obviously get into this with our True Cinema, but the movie opens with credits, and it opens with a very distinct sound and style that is unlike in pretty much anything else. And Sean asked Todd Field, the director, why did you start it like this? Here's my theory. And he gave his theory, and Todd Field was just like, that's a great theory. That's cool. I can't tell you more. And it was like, that's incredible. And I think that adds a lot to the mysticism of the film itself. Like Todd Field, in interviews and everything that he does, he just like, he talks about this like it's somebody's like real life. And he's just like, that's awesome. Whatever you got out of it, that's so cool. And like won't fully transcribe, like you said, Alden, like exactly what he wants people to know. And I think that's part of the genius of the movie. So we're in week 7 of the Oscars. Ben, how you feeling? We're getting really, really close, man. We got like 3 weeks to go.
3 weeks. And then we will be united for the first time, which I'm excited about.
Look at us.
Oscars coming up, man. This is going to be fun. I'm stoked, man. This is obviously, we're going to talk about it, but one of the tighter races, I think. So this is going to be one of those, kind of nail biters. It's not a best supporting actor, that's for sure. We got that locked in. This is going to be something else. So I'm stoked to see how it all.
Judd Hirsch, 100%. Team, absolutely. Let's go.
Hirsch Hive. Let's do it. Let's get it. I do want to say though, just like looking at the 3 of us on here, it's just this body of corpses that Jade left after the auction draft when we all just got like slaughtered. We're just the ghosts of the auction draft. So shout out Jade for just destroying us. But
Yeah. Well done, Jade. Hopefully we'll get another auction draft on here, or just a movie draft in general, because Ben, you do them all the time on your podcast, Three Films in a Podcast. If listeners have not listened, go check it out, because a lot of memes that show up on Twitter of me come from those moments. So I will say they are worth watching. But yeah, I'm just soulless after our draft with Jade. So yeah, we're talking about Tar. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. I've been bending Ben's phone and text messaging ear for a long time about Tar and how incredibly excited I am to talk about this. Before we dive into the movie, Alden, I want to know, where do you stand on the Oscars? What's your relationship with the Oscars? And then I'm curious, we can kind of talk through your feelings on what might win Best Picture, because after all, that's kind of what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I think that the Oscars in my life are very appropriately for this conversation about the film Tar and Lydia Tar. I think there's a relationship there, a connection to myth and how we mythologize people and things, because I think a lot of us that followed the business of film, or that grew up watching Disc 2 bonus features, or seeking out information about writers and filmmakers and production designers and composers and everybody, we logically know, and we will say this when a category doesn't go our way, it means nothing, it's political, it's bought and sold. Logically, we understand this. But emotionally, I think why we keep coming back and why they do matter, even if they don't matter, because think about the uncrowned artists that we've had, or how long it took for people. Off the top of my head, look at like Sir Roger Deakins. He had a knighthood before he had an Oscar, and just like how old this guy was before he got his due, or Morricone, or even younger guys feel like DiCaprio, obviously probably the most famous one, how long it took. So we know that you can be a great without it, but we tune in to moments. We tune into human stories like Shape of Water sweep, or Parasite sweep. Return of the King sweep was probably the first time when I was a kid that I saw, wow, they're recognizing something that affected me so much, and look at the culmination of their work. Sometimes it's been there to uplift storytelling and connect with audiences kind of in a wide way like that. Sometimes it serves as a balm in really hard times, like with Heath Ledger, and the way that ended up being so much more. So what it stands to be is so great, even if sometimes it's not. And everybody has that one where they could be like, yeah, like that time. Everybody has their Green Book or their Crash or whatever,
La La Land or whatever it might be.
Yeah, or if you're wrong and you think it's La La Land. But because La La Land's great. But so it's, my relationship with it is, I will always keep coming back because I want to be moved, and because I want the human moment. And so, yeah, we can all pretty much assume at this point that Ke Huy Quan is a lock for Best Supporting Actor for Everything Everywhere. We can logically say, oh, it's the momentum of all the associations and the voting body. Of course he's going to win. But but that speech, I'll forget all of that. I'll forget everything. And it's about the man and the art in that moment. So that's my relationship with it. Generally, it's the night where everybody buys in. It's where we make it's a social contract to forget what you know, and it's like what movies could be as much as what they are.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think you summed it up the best. Is that it means everything and nothing. You know, it's just like, it's the biggest night of the year for sure, but also like none of it matters because like, who knows, you know what I mean? But also it means everything. So it's this weird mix.
It's all about investment. And like, sometimes it's like, I would love to see every documentary short. Very rarely do I see any of them. But it's still an opportunity, sort of like when you have an interesting guest speaker in a class, to see like, oh, look at them. Like, what a moment for these people. I have no idea what they did or who they are or what they're about, but it's pure. It feels really pure. And sometimes it's frustrating, you know, with some of the humor of the hosts or the undercutting of like the animated categories and things. And, you know, we're trying to get away from that. It's not perfect. We all rage about when they try to not air certain categories and things, but largely it's a feeling of it's the end of our season. It's the closest thing we all have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a lot of good points, obviously, with the Oscars, and And I'm curious to see how this year goes in terms of that. Like, I'm curious what our moment this year is going to be. I'm curious. Did either of you watch the Oscars promo that came out? So the Oscars and the Academy came out with a promo like 2 days ago with Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, so it's like 4 minutes long-ish. Ben,
like
did you...
Gun spoof?
Yeah, it's like a Maverick spoof.
I did not see it. Kimmel's like on my low end of talk show hosts. So like, right. I just like, I don't need to watch him for 4 minutes. So
that's fair. And I think you probably saved a good 4 minutes. Hopefully you do something productive with that 4 minutes, more productive than this. But I thought it was interesting, slap jokes and crypto jokes aside, which was just absolutely horrendous to put in a national promo to get people to watch your show, which I think is fascinating. I do like the Top Gun Maverick theme. I think that's a really obvious way that the Academy recognizes Top Gun Maverick, even though they're actually not really recognizing Top Gun Maverick by not including it in a lot of categories that it should have been. The point that I'm getting at here is Kimmel does make kind of a joke about, here's how it's going to go. And 5 or 6 hours later, hopefully we pick the right Best Picture winner. And I personally thought that was the funniest, most on point, poignant, self-deprecating, horrendous thing to listen to on both ends of the spectrum, because the Academy gets it wrong so frequently. And I'm curious going into this with Top Gun Maverick, with Tar, Banshees, Everything Everywhere, The Fabelmans. Like, you have so many things where everybody in their corners can say that this should be the winner, this should be the one, and we will see what the Academy ends up kind of rallying behind and going behind. Alden, I want to take a couple minutes and just talk through. We don't have to do a power rankings, but I just want to talk through where do you sit on other movies like outside of Tar? I'm curious, kind of where's Tar on your list of potential like actual winning of the Best Picture, and what do you like? Maybe what's your wish casting, and then what's your actual like? I'll give you $100 to put in the pot. What are you actually going to bet on?
So we'll start with Tar. I think Tar is a middle of the pack entry where I think that it can feel in certain ways, not that it has similar approaches or even thematics to the menu, but I think that it's not doing what La La Land or Fabelmans do, where they make people feel good about artistic engagement. I think that those are Tar and the Menu and a couple other things that have come out over the past few years on television and in film are things that I think some voters would say, are we the baddies? And they might not, they'll feel called out by it, even though both of those are, food and classical music composition are not one-to-one with movies. They are making very clear arts indictments. And so I think that Tar, they'll celebrate it in a lot of different ways, one of which could be Cate Blanchett as Quentin Tarantino.
Oh my God, that was so good. That was the best.
So intense. Such a good clip. So it could be that. In terms of want to win, I think in a perfect world for me, it would probably be Fabelman's Everything Everywhere. I could be just a very happy little Oscars movie fan if either of those happen. But what I think is going to happen, you bring up a good point about how everyone on every team for all of these can say, no, it should be this one. More so than in previous years, I feel like. I think that we've had some pretty good years, but there have been some, like, no insult to Spotlight, but like Spotlight's win year, it was kind of like, these are all fine. Like, these are good movies, but there wasn't anything that was like, my goodness, like we all sort of rallied. And when we have had something like that, that's when you get your Green Books or whatever. And I think Coda is a great film, but Coda, everybody looked at it like, oh, that's cute, and people patted that on the head as a win. I think that what I predict, and this happens sometimes, and I think this will be one of those times. This will be a let's share the, as Samwise Gamgee said, let's share the load. This will be a split the winnings type, give everybody a win, and that's frustrating because it results in Argo situations where it's like, oh, you're going to give me picture, but you didn't give me anything acting. You got nothing else, but you didn't give me directing. I think, let's say Cate Blanchett wins, right? Yeah. Or Michelle Yeoh, but let's say Cate. Let's say Ke Huy Quan wins, which you probably will. Then supporting actress, could go to either Everything Everywhere, but let's say it's either of them or who else is in there? Michelle Williams is lead.
Angela Bassett, right? Like,
let's say it's Angela Bassett,
supporting actress,
and then screenplay. Let's just divvy it up. I think by the time it's all said and done, they might go Banshee's Best Picture because it didn't get anything else.
Oh, interesting.
Fascinating. So you don't think Banshees will get screenplay?
I don't.
But you think that the lack of other category wins will actually create a surge to give it a Best Picture?
I think so. I think it'll be one of those situations where they're like, because Green Book didn't get other categories besides Mahershala, but Mahershala is Mahershala. And they love a two-peat, and they wanted to recreate their Christoph Waltz moment and all that. And I get it. Like, your second time up and you win again. That's my like, not conspiracy, but just like my domino effect theory, where I'm like, I think Banshees will be the one that everyone loves, but just gets kind of shut out of everything. Because I think original screenplay will probably go to the Daniels. I think.
Oh, okay.
I love that.
Similarly to like Jordan Peele, where you guys aren't quite director yet, but here you go.
Yeah.
And then we're not going to know what to do with picture. Or James Cameron wins Best Picture and then drives to Catherine Bigelow's house and says, "Ah,
I did it!
Finally,
finally
we're
did
even."
it." No, that's interesting. It's like, it's like spreading the wealth. Like, no movie takes home more than 3 kind of thing. We're not going to see any sort of sweep of like, oh, Everything Everywhere took 7 Oscars or anything. I think that's a really interesting idea and probably accurate, because I could see, like I'm still in my bag for Austin Butler for Elvis. But I could see them like getting that and like maybe costume, but like, or they give it to Brendan for The Whale. It's all the race. Yeah, it really is, where it's like they love a biopic and a music biopic, but they also love like a comeback story with Brendan. But then I think Colin is just like fun to be around, and we know that also plays into it. Just like, who do the voters like to be around? Who do they want to hear give a speech? So I think that's a great like theory. I'm curious to see how it all plays out. I could totally see that happening.
Yeah. I think that it is a weird year in the fact that if something wins in a particular category, so if Austin Butler does win for actor in a leading role, I think you're right, Alden. Like, I just don't think that bodes well for Elvis as a Best Picture, right? I just don't think that it's going to give that kind of momentum and that energy where it's like director and Best Picture, or like screenplay and Best Picture. I think there's a lot of splitting of votes going on, and I think it's especially interesting in a year in which we have kind of a lot of split like supporting categories. We have like 2 of each from the movies, right? We have Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan from Banshees, and we have Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hugh from Everything Everywhere. And so that just feels kind of like an automatic split, and then the Academy's kind of left to figure out where do we give that one award to. That's really what it does kind of feel like.
Which is only good for, it's only good for Key. It's only good for Judd Hirsch. It's only good for like, Carrie Condon and Angela Bassett. Like, it's just, I think the splits are, if you're going to do the split, my God, it has to be 2 cataclysmic ones that have equal buzz the entire time. And I love Stephanie Hsu, and she should have had the buzz the entire time.
Oh my God.
But the fact that she hasn't is like, okay, well, you guys tried to rectify it at the end, but what will that actually mean? It's interesting. Like, we haven't had, even our sweeps haven't been truly sweepy, sweeping. There hasn't been a Big 5 winner since Silence of the Lambs. Like, so that's 90s. Like, that's it's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen. Our Parasite and Return of the Kings are sweeps sans acting, not supporting nor lead. So we haven't had a complete thing in so long, in decades, where it's like we are very much in a people treat this like their game board. But then we could also root for chaos. Do Brendan Fraser, Ana de Armas, Avatar.
Let's do it.
Just take a hard left on every category.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hirsch Hive, baby. Right?
Hirsch Hive, rise up. Here's what I'm interested about, and I want to talk through real quick before we dive into actually talking about Tar. So Tar is up for 6 Oscars. Generally, movies with lots of nominations either come out with everything or nothing. And I think that's one of the talking points that's kind of complementary to this conversation is Everything Everywhere has 11 noms, right? that's tough. That looks good, but I just feel like that's a bad beat. I just feel like that's essentially the Academy saying we recognize it, but like we're just going to give it the 1 or we're just going to give it the 2. I am most interested in original screenplay because Triangle of Sadness is up for original screenplay. It's also up for director and for best picture. I feel like that's a very true like bottom middle of the pack movie here, where Ruben Östlund either I just don't know like where does Triangle of Sadness like stand in all of this? Like Tar is also up for screenplay and director and best picture, and like what happens if Triangle of Sadness wins original screenplay early on in the night? I mean, you've got 2 hours to go, and I just feel like that is kind of a momentum shifter to saying, oh, okay, we're recognizing Triangle. Like, there might be a huge search for something that wins a major award early on. I just don't know, if the Academy is going to swing all or nothing on one of the movies or not. And I feel like that's really where Tar kind of fits into this. 6 nominations, and if it does win screenplay, I feel like that's a good bet. I feel like that sounds good for Tar to go on and do best picture. But if it ends up picking up mostly, below the line, if it ends up picking up a film editing, I feel like that's the Academy just being like, hey, here you go. We're just going to like move you off to the side. We're going to start talking about other things. So I get worried. I get worried for my darling, my little baby Tar. I just don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, my darling. My little Linda. I just don't know like what is going to happen. So we do have 6 categories with Tar here. Best Picture, Best Leading Actress, Cate Blanchett, we mentioned. Best Director, Todd Field. First movie in 16 years, which, could be a major quote unquote comeback story in the eyes of the Academy. Seeing somebody come back and create such a magnificent and kind of ominous and mysterious yet hypnotic work of art, I think is something the Academy does enjoy. Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. Ben, what of the 6 do you think Tar is going to take home? Because I just want to level set where we are all at with Tar, so I can know that I am the Tarmy headmaster here.
Here's my hot take: Tar's going over.
Fuck you. That's what I gotta say. Get out of here.
It's getting 0 awards. If it wins film editing as a film editor, I will be so mad because like that movie really shouldn't be here. But I don't know. The only thing I think has the chance is Cate Blanchett. And I think honestly, if Michelle wins, I think it loses. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what it takes there.
I think that'll be the statement of, if Cate Blanchett does not get it, that is the definitive statement of we didn't really consider this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what's the most thunderous element? It's her.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like what plays in my head every episode that we talk about this. I just keep thinking, what would be nominated if we didn't guarantee 10 this year? Like if we were back in the day of just like 5 Best Picture nominees, like would this movie have made it? I think Tar might have, but I just don't know.
Tar might have. Yeah, but you lose Triangle, you lose Avatar, you lose Top Gun for sure.
Yeah.
So,
but isn't that really what we've wanted all along? Is the Avatars and the Top Gun Mavericks and those other things to be included?
I love the 10, and I think that the big 5 should all be at 10 at this point, or at least flexible.
Yeah,
5 to 10, which I think Best Picture still technically is. They just don't ever do it. They don't ever go for the 7, 8.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing for me. I learned today that for Best Picture, you can actually have a write-in ballot, and you can write something in. So if we just start the campaigning now, I'm okay if we move away from Tar and we just go the Babylon Hive rises strong.
Absolutely
and we just
not.
we pull the Andrea Riseborough here, and we just reach out to everybody we know, and we just say, hey, write it in, baby, and we win.
You declared yourself just now the father of a little tarling. What happens?
I have twins. Okay.
What happens theoretically if Hilder beats your boy Horowitz?
My boy Justin Hurwitz.
Yeah, or not Horowitz. That's the host. Hurwitz. Yeah. What happens if he loses to Tar? Do you feel like the most conflicted man in the world?
I
don't think you
truthfully, I have no words because I'm conflicted already. Just imagining that reality and that scenario. I I think that in the scores for Tar is so sublime. I think it is absolutely in the stark opposite direction of something like Babylon that is boisterous and bombastic and so in your face. And Tar is so nuanced and so just like weaving in and out of emotions. All I say, so Ben says 0 for 6. I think, here's the deal, and I'm sticking to this. I'm fucking riding this train until March 12th, Ben, when we are watching the Oscars together and they say, and the Best Picture award goes to, and it's fucking Tar, you pay me whatever the odds are. Okay. Because we're making a personal bet here. Because I think Tar is taking Best Picture. I'm going to stick to that. I think definitely Cate Blanchett is winning lead. And I think Tar is getting screenplay. So I think it's going to go for 3 for 6. And those are some pretty big 3 in my opinion. Alden, where are you on the 6? What do you feel? And then we'll jump into Tar specifically. I
am so pained by this Best Actress race. I really am. I genuinely don't know what to think, because I think I was saying to you guys, I feel like it was Cate Blanchett's to lose until the world caught up with what we already knew from Everything Everywhere. It was Michelle Yeoh, just a phenom in that movie. So I feel like I want the Everything Everywhere celebration, but I'm gonna say Cate Blanchett. If I have to pick out of the 6, I'll say Cate Blanchett, and then I will also add probably score. I think because I think not that Babylon doesn't deserve that, but I think that Babylon, similarly to like what I was talking about, did not make them feel too great about themselves.
You mean the dark descent into LA's asshole wasn't their favorite thing representative of their culture?
No, they were like, oh, this La La Land kid will never say a bad thing about it. And then, and then I don't know. I think that screenplay, I think it'll get beat by something like Banshees or maybe even Triangle, like you were saying. So yeah, I'm gonna say 2 for 6. Okay. Not that I would mind more, but yeah, I think 2. I don't think it'll go 0 and 6. No, but I do think
6. Let's do it.
It's not gonna go. It's not gonna go 0 for 6, but it's not gonna go above 3. I think it's not gonna. It's somewhere in there.
I like that.
I'm curious. I haven't really seen too many like FYC ads kind of coming out for Tar as it is. So I'm curious where Focus Features like falls on this line. I'm really curious what they're gonna try to push as voting gets closer. I believe voting happens like 1 week before the Oscars, like the official ballot turn in. So I'm really curious, like over the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, like where do they fall? And it's something we've mentioned on the pod before, like with Everything Everywhere, you're in so many categories. What do you kind of like choose? Where do you put your eggs in your basket? Do you go Michelle Yeoh and try to do that and try to win Best Picture? Do you try to, support some other categories? You can't really have it all unless the Academy just all of a sudden decides that you can have it all, which I just don't see happening. No. Okay, let's talk about Tar specifically, because I really want to get into some moments. Tar is such a complex and meaningful and I already said it, a masterful film in my opinion that deserves like a 6-hour pod, and that won't happen unfortunately. So maybe we'll go Patreon style. Alden, we'll have you back. We'll go Patreon. We'll just 6-hour pod this thing on the side. So Ben, I want to know, you have seen Tar twice. I want to know what you think, because I've been trying to get you over to the Tarmy. You're obviously not here yet. You're not reporting for duty, or what's up?
It's fine.
I feel like but with Avatar: The Way of Water and Babylon, and now Tar has joined this club. Tar costs far less money, obviously, than those films. Yeah. But I love your take, where you're like, let's spend years and millions of dollars making a movie, and everybody's like, yeah, it's fine. And then you're like, yes, that's a major win.
Yeah, exactly. A good shoulder shrug. 12 years later, you can complain. No, I like Tar actually quite a bit. I also, it breaks my heart, this like Best Actress race, because I can't deny how good Cate is in this movie. Like, she's fucking phenomenal. She's so good. I think, it's more, for me, it's more of like a 1, maybe 2 note performance, but it's like, it's at 100%. whereas Michelle Yeoh had to kind of do like 30 different things, you know, but we also didn't get a ton of time with a lot of those. So my heart is still for Michelle, but I will understand if like Cate Blanchett wins this. So a great performance. I think it's like shot beautifully. I think the reveals that we get, like, you know, this is a spoiler pod, so obviously we're hoping you all have watched it by the time you hear this, but like when she goes back home and we learn that like that's not even her real first name, you know, just like how much of her life she's manufactured. And then then you have to think back on the last 2 hours and 20 minutes, like, holy shit. Okay, wait, hold on. Like, wait, what is like, what's real? What was genuine? What was whatever? So it's a movie that for me played really well on the rewatch. Like it was even more impactful. So yeah, great performance. I think it's a beautiful film. I think a lot of the supporting characters in there also help elevate her performance, which is great. Like her wife does a wonderful job. Like everyone in there is just so good. So great to see Todd Field back and working. And I don't know, like, you know, my top 3 Marvel villains, Hela's up there. So like I'm always rooting for Cate Blanchett. You know what I mean? Like I'm always here for her. So I had a good time with this movie. I liked it quite a bit. I don't know. Like we've been talking about, I don't know how it's going to perform at the Oscars. Like I genuinely can see it going over, but like, yeah, maybe we'll take 3, we'll see. But it's a recommend for sure for anybody that maybe hasn't watched it yet. That's like listening to this. Like, I think it's definitely worth checking out. Like I had Matt from my pod ask me about, he was going to watch Tar, or I forget what the other movie was, but doing the best.
Doesn't even matter because it's Tar.
It doesn't even matter. But he was like, what should I watch? And I was like, if you want like a powerhouse performance, if you want that, watch Tar. But if you want like a better overall movie, in my opinion, watch the other thing. I can't even remember what it is now. Like maybe it was Fablemans or something like that. But it was just like, those are your 2 things. Like Cate Blanchett's going to rip your heart out, you know, just like mess with your brain throughout this whole thing. And she's just such a force. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, everything rides on her. So she's wonderful. Movie's great. I love a long oneer. You know what I mean? Like we got a few of those, which was kind of cool. So yeah, I was into it.
I dig it.
Not the Tarmy. Not the Tarmy. Like
okay, I was just going to ask you, what's your Tarmy status? Like, are you enlisted?
I'm not in Tarnation by any means.
You sounded tempted though.
I'm tempted. Yeah.
Sounds like if I shoot enough Tar propaganda your way, feels like you could be swayed.
If I get the right incentives, if you pay for my college or whatever, then maybe I'll enlist. But for now, I'm staying out of the Tarmy.
Look, Lydia Tar pays for the car service. I'm sure she could pay for your college service as well.
Yeah,
so yeah, you know, she's a compassionate human being to those that she uses. So just be aware. She'll use you and suck you dry. Alden, where do you fall on Tar here? Where are you at?
I think Tar is one of those films that, like we talked about with the rewatch, I've also seen it twice. It just gets better the more you think about it. It gets better the more that you engage with it and the more that you continue to ask questions, even just revisiting scenes. I've seen it in totality twice, but I've watched the Juilliard scene like 20 times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because it's like, at first you're like, oh, this is a comment strictly about what she thinks. No, it's a comment strictly about how the students react. No, it's a comment about whether the other students react. No, it's a comment about the way social media reacts. And then you're like, it's kind of all those and all the in-betweens. And you're supposed to be a student as well, but you're also supposed to be walking with her as the cinematography, you know, paints and as it guides you. And the entire film is like that. It's, where are the lines? Are there lines? You know, is she a protective mother? Is she a good mother? Is it right to do what she did to scare this other child? Is it? But can a parent not sympathize with something like that of just wanting to protect your kid fiercely? And there's all of these things where, is she the monster that certain people believe her to be? The film is so much about abuse and power dynamics. It shows none of it. It confirms almost none of it.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. What I love is that it's about relevance. And so much of what she says, you can say, yes, that's such a good point. But then by the end of it, you're like, but are you the one to make it? Do you even understand it? And it's a fascinating descent into madness and a lot of the things that we've talked about with the rewatch and things you can notice, like the ghost of this woman in the background of shots
of Krista,
which I didn't notice on the first watch at all. People were like, "Oh, you see all the ghost shots?" And I was like,
"What are you talking about?"
Yeah, so there's that, and watching her Actors on Actors with Michelle Yeoh about how her backstory is that her parents are deaf and she has misophonia, and so it's like how that created a little bit of her ethos even when she was still Linda Tarr with 2 R's. And the way that it's just a masterful sort of insult to her, but not an entire condemnation. Like, she begins it, as I referenced at the top, the time is the thing, and how you can't start without me. It's all control. And by the end, she's got a pair of headphones on that tell her to keep up with the movie, with the video game. Like, she's been robbed of everything, but the film isn't saying, you irredeemable monster, confirmed you did all these things, because we don't know necessarily what happened. Maybe maybe this person was what Tar said she was in certain ways, and we don't know. And I love a movie that is bold enough and brave enough to ask a bunch of questions and be comfortable, like Field has been in his interviews, like comfortable knowing that people will try to not reduce it in a negative way, but it's become like Field and Cate Blanchett made the cancel culture movie.
Yeah.
Sure, kinda, like if you need a quick headline, but it's not that.
No.
It's so much more than that. It's just a masterful character study.
I think you bring up a lot of good points. I do think in terms of, and why I'm so firm on it winning original screenplay, I think is due to that rewatchability. I went to see it a second time last week as well. I had the whole theater to myself. It was sublime. It was awesome. And I got to like out loud comment what I thought of Tar and like put the pieces together on the big screen by myself with my popcorn and soda, and it was perfect. And Alden, you bring up the Juilliard scene, and you mention how as you watch it, it shifts and it kind of molds and like it evolves about like what you think it's about or what it actually is about, or what you get out of that monologue from Cate Blanchett. And what I think is so incredible about that is that is the focus of what she does with Max at the piano. She talks about how it's a question and an answer and another question and another answer. And that is how this entire script, and namely her personality, really revolves around these continuing questions and answers about what she is doing, and is this right or is it wrong? Is it justified or not? Is she allowed to pursue something that she's interested in and that might not align with her ideals and this character of Lydia Tarr that she has painted for the world, and kind of going after that new student and kind of having this kind of sidelined world. So I think there's a lot of interesting things there. And on the second watch as well, I noticed that first interview you get with Adam Gopnik, who works for the New Yorker and is in this movie. It completely lays out exactly what we're about to watch, and it is frightening how good and articulate that is. And I rewatched it right before we hopped on here, and the moment that she kind of picks a composer to use as an example throughout history and says she did conduct at the Berlin Orchestra, but she was reduced merely to I believe she's she says like a dog treat or something, like being a guest composer, and that in and of itself, once you've seen the movie, you're like, oh fuck, man, she's got some, like, her psyche is really kind of trembling on that line of constant recognition and success and being part of that world that she wants. So I think there's so many good things to break down about this movie. And I watched a kind of Q&A, a moderated conversation with Cate Blanchett, Nina Haas, and Todd Field this afternoon, moderated by Bradley Cooper. Which I think is very interesting. You can search it on YouTube. I'm sure it'll pop up for you. Bradley Cooper has his Leonard Bernstein biopic coming out next year titled Maestro. So I think it's very fascinating that he kind of hosted this Q&A with them. They mention lots of things, and there was one thing in particular I wanted to be sure I brought up on this pod that I think just gives a little bit more light to Lydia Tarr as a character and her background. And that is the fact that her relationship with her wife, played by Nina Hoss, is so much more complex than we're initially led to believe, because Nina Hoss's character is essentially the engine and the powerhouse and the decision maker of the orchestra. Lydia does, man that podium, and she does determine the time and everything about that. But it all ultimately runs through her wife, who is that character on the side there. And you can see that power dynamic shift and take place even outside of the orchestra. And you see it in the very, very beginning when she's trying to decide the picture that she wants on her next album. And her wife puts her foot on a particular Mahler vinyl cover. And that is the one that she ends up going with. And so this like constant give and take of like, I'm using you and I know that, but you provide me with something I need, and I provide you with something you need. And there's this kind of trust that's been established for 10 years that we're not privy to only in the slightest of these 3 weeks we get to spend with Lydia Tarr. So I think there's tons of stuff to break down, obviously. And I appreciate you letting me monologue for like 6 seconds here, or 6 minutes. So I think we should talk about certain scenes. And there's one scene in particular I want to bring up, and I want your guys' opinion on. She falls on the stairs. And this is a very crucial kind of moment in the film where her ultimate descent begins, and she kind of starts to lose her grip on what reality might be. There is a very popular, if not tired, kind of controversy and conversation around this, that everything from that moment on is a dream. And I don't subscribe to that. I think that is very reductive for what the whole movie stands for. Ben, this moment, did you when you watched it the first and the second time, do you feel like that might be the case at all? Do you feel like anything that we see might be actually outside of the reality that Lydia Tarr is kind of living? Or what's your take on that theory?
No, that's nothing I ever really thought about. I mean, I can see why it's fun to come up with that kind of stuff, but if it is a dream and not a nightmare, like, why would this end the way it does? Like, I don't know why this would happen. So if they're, go more the nightmare route, then like, yeah, maybe. But yeah, like you said, I think it just kind of like is reductive and is, once again, the reason I cannot stand Joker. Any moment I get to put slander on that movie, I will, because that's the end of the fucking movie. It's like, was any of the last 2 hours real? It's like, I don't know, fucking Todd Phillips, like, make up your mind, So with that coming up here, just like her, you wouldn't get it. Man.
Yeah, maybe you just didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that theory at all. Like I said, I think it just kind of takes away from how the movie wraps up. So
yeah. What about you, Alden?
I'm right there with Ben on this. I think that, again, there is fun to it. Like, the Ferris Bueller is a figment of Cameron's imagination.
Right,
I get it. They're fun. Ash Ketchum got struck by lightning and all of Pokemon is in a coma. Sure. Whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I think that I think what's more interesting is there is another reality happening, but it's not about dreams. It's way more real than that and way more pathetic and sad. Mm-hmm. And that's what is unveiled with Linda Tarr with 2 R's. That's what is shown with her brother, who is not awestruck by her at all.
Yeah.
What he sees at the top of the stairs, is Linda, his sister, who left and was ashamed of home.
Yeah.
And you get so much story there with very little. And it's like, those are the competing realities, is Lydia Tarr's reality and Linda Tarr's reality. Mm-hmm. And Lydia Tarr has been trying to kill Linda Tarr for years. Mm. And like you brought up with her wife, and how her wife talks about, when you first came here as a guest, there's that guest word again, and how their roles there, and how they have parasitized each other. How Mark Strong's character and her parasitize each other until that explodes. And I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, the great Julian Glover there, General Veers as her mentor, or Grandmaster Pycelle for the Thrones fans. He talks about sort of how the downfall of all these composers before, and you get the idea that she parasitizes him and he her to continue his relevancy, which she is also. He's got complaints about his driver and things like that.
Yeah,
and they're all sort of holding on to the realities and the personas that they create. So that's the dream. It's very much in our faces, and it doesn't need to be created via fan theory. And I think that when it comes to her fall in this scene, seeing this beastly dog, but then getting to rehearsal and saying, I was attacked. That's a nice, vague way. Is it possible the dog bit her? Sure. Is it possible that she just tripped and smashed her face that hard? Possibly. Or was disoriented, fell again? Make up whatever you want. But she wants to say, I was attacked.
She was attacked, right.
Because that's the drama, right? Really, you ran up into an abandoned place with a dog who probably thought you were a threat, and then you started running and acting erratic, then you fell. And it's a lot more sad and pathetic, right?
Yeah.
Linda Tarr just fell.
Linda Tarr fell, yeah.
Yes. Lydia Tarr was attacked.
Yeah.
And I think that's the truth of this character, that she's just going to twist everything. She can't help it.
Yeah.
She can't help it. She's even, like I brought it up already with the child stuff. Like, she's Lydia to her kid.
Yeah.
Not mom. Has to be Lydia. Has to get it even from a little child.
That's
playing with
frightening.
toys.
That's unreal.
She needs that too. Like, no, you have to call me Lydia. Like, you don't even get the conversation, but you just know. And even to this little girl, she's like, I have to be a boogeyman. And what does she say to her? Like, because, I'm an adult and other adults won't believe you.
Right.
Yeah.
She has to be this all the time.
Yeah.
That's more terrifying than anything a fan theory could make up.
Yeah. It makes you feel like when she's with her daughter, and they're like, she has the whatever band set up, and the daughter's like, I want everyone to have a pencil. And she's like, nope, only one person can have a pencil. It's like, even in like playtime with imagination, you can't be like, everyone could be the conductor. Why not? She's like, no, there are rules. Like, Jesus. Okay.
And she very adamantly and very purposefully mentions not everybody can have a conductor's stick. This is not a democracy, is what she says. And that is what she brings into every aspect of her life. This is not a democracy. I am the ruler. I am the one. And that is why this kind of Juilliard, edit kind of brings her down, which I think is so interesting. Let me run through a short list of scenes here, and we can each give our true cinema moment for Tar. Then we're going to do best lead actresses through history. Okay, so the opening interview with Adam Gopnik, I kind of mentioned, is very pivotal, sets the scene and the tone in just countless ways. The Juilliard monologue is some of the most sublime camera movement I think I've seen in a very, very long time, if not one of the best scenes of 2022 just altogether. It is absolutely hypnotic. The conversation outing Sebastian in his office is the next one that I have here on this list. Again, things going her way, things that have always been that are now changing to the way that Lydia Tarr wants them to be. Lunch with Olga. This is when we see kind of Olga get brought into the orchestra, and this kind of crumbling of generational responsibility. I feel like we learn, Lydia says, oh, did you learn this from, this symphonic number or this vinyl or this record? And she says, no, I just watched it on YouTube. And that is that's a fucking dagger in Lydia Tarr's heart and her brain and everything that she stands for, that she has to try to figure out what to do with that energy and how to offset that and how to kind of dominate that situation. I have the second lunch with Andres here. There are two moments, and I think both of these are very pivotal, but the second one, I wanted to pull a line from what Andres says. To be accused is the same as being guilty. And now this happens 20 or 30 minutes before the, essentially the cancel culture storyline and theme starts to take place with the edit that's been released online. So I think that's very telling. Returning Olga's bear and falling up the stairs, we mentioned. The edit of the Juilliard lecture. Playing the accordion in her home, I think, means a lot more than a lot of people think it means.
Best
and it is
song.
Yeah, there it is right there. We've done it.
For sale.
Another one. And everything surrounding that is, on the first watch, to me personally, I was like, this seems odd. This why are we diving into Neighbors, and why are we doing these things? And the second watch, I'm like, this means as much as anything else in the movie does.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is an accordion and that it is the kind of accordion kind of group, there's a specific name for it, but the group that she helps establish that really gets under her skin eventually and comes back to bite her, I think is very interesting. Tackling Elliot off the stage, this is undoubtedly what they will probably show as the scene if she does win, up on the big screen. Going home and crying while watching the Mahler video. We've mentioned she goes home and tries to go back into that reality, that total fake relationship that she has with Mahler and Leonard Bernstein and all these people that she just like actually doesn't know on a personal level, but thinks that has curated her life. And then we get a sharp turn. She arrives in Thailand, and this moment is obviously very important to the movie. And then we get the final scene, being that guest conductor at the anime screening where people are doing cosplay, and she is reduced to maybe what her worst nightmare is. Ben, what is your true cinema moment for Tar? I'm exceptionally curious.
Hold on. First, I want to say, if anyone doubts like Ethan's love for this movie and how much he's shilling for Tar, if you go back to
I'm not a shill, man.
if you go back to our old episodes in the True Cinema segment, there have been at most 6 scenes mentioned.
Oh, like
and
3
Ethan
maybe.
just read off
3 or 4.
12 scenes from this
outline
movie.
the film.
He's going to make sure every fucking scene from this movie gets brought up, whether or not we talk about it. I love it. I respect it. Like I have no problems with it. I just had to mention it. I love it so much. And I got on here, I was like, God damn, this is like every scene from the movie. Like what can I talk about?
Hey, I left off the first lunch conversation with Andres. Okay. I made sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
I had to pare down.
While talking about the second lunch with Andres, but yes, you're right. Actually, mine is like Alden's talked about it. And after I watched this movie, I went back immediately to her talking to the girl in the red coat, because I was like, it's fucking mental, man. That like, she just goes up to this kid and she's like, don't fuck with my kid or I'm going to fuck with you and no one's going to believe you because I'm the adult here, whatever. And like, I'm sure there are parents who have had that daydream of like, God, I wish I could just go up to that kid and just like, I just want to trip that kid, or I just want to go like, just tell a kid to like, leave my kid alone, whatever, you know what I mean? So to see her actually do it though, it's like, oh, that is intense. And I think if I was to show someone a scene from this movie to kind of get across who Lydia Tarr is, I think that's the perfect scene where it's like she is like basically accosting this little child, and this is nowhere near the worst thing she does in this movie. So like this is like pretty light stuff for Lydia Tarr. So that's my favorite scene. It's the scene that stuck with me for sure. So that's what I would go with.
Yeah, that's a frightening scene. Does a lot of damage in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And Cate Blanchett learned piano and German for this role. And if I can learn that segment of German, I feel like maybe my life arc will kind of be complete. I can just like mouth off to somebody, and if I could do it on the pod, even better. So the more I can be like Lydia
on the pod and like custom made suits.
Oh my
God. Alden, what is your true cinema moment, Alden?
I have to go with what I twice this year have gotten to use this phrase, the Ratatouille moment of being home and opening up to the Bernstein footage of his with a PBS concert I think Bernstein used to do of just explaining music to kids and everything, and sort of these educational talks while composing or while conducting, and her tears and just the moment where she lets herself be Linda again and remember why she loved this before. The fall from grace still is not complete at this moment. We still have Thailand. We still have being misunderstood with the prostitute stuff and the
and the very real haunting of Mahler's fifth, right? And like choosing a masseuse, like that moment is 10 seconds, and it is everything the movie is about wrapped up in that very moment.
The fifth, number 5, the same position as Olga, the half circle, the everything. It's a quadruple insult.
Fifth, I believe the anime movie says it's the 5th journey through whatever, right? And so another little dig at the end.
It's so horrifying, and it just keeps going and going. But for this brief moment, it reminds you that she is what she says she is in a lot of ways. And that's the thing, is that sometimes you have characters in literature and film, like Jay Gatsby is a great example, where he's like 90 to 95% facade. Like he's gamed and cheated his way into this money, and he's fabricated this guy pretty much almost entirely. He didn't win any of these war medals, et cetera, et cetera. And you see there's some middle of the road people, like Steve Jobs. You know, we both love that movie with Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs, and how
we do.
He was this architect, but he didn't code or really build anything. And you have your middle of the ground, but Lydia is an EGOT. She is all of these things. She did do all these things. She is a whatever double PhD, all her accolades. You know, she's got it all. These are verifiable things. I've seen people online say, "Oh, she must have fabricated her mentorship with Bernstein entirely." I don't even think that. Because you would get caught doing that.
Yeah.
He probably did. She probably exaggerated the extent of it. Maybe she had a couple master classes, and then, you know, that was it. And then she went and acted like they were friends. I could see that. But she probably did meet this man. And I think what she realizes is that not a single accolade that we heard about during that opening conversation ever made her feel the way that this tape did.
Yeah.
In what we know was a house with deaf parents. So she was the only one hearing it outside of maybe her brother, who doesn't seem like they have a good relationship anymore. So it's like, I'm such a sucker for those moments. And the menu had it too with Chef Slowick of, you know, reaching him in a true horror movie, reaching like any type of human that was left in there.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think it's Field being like, let me create the ultimate cancelable genius for these times. Like, not really, because you feel for her despite her monstrous qualities. You do get it, and the film never comes down either way. It gives you just enough of a, hey, remember that she is a genius, right before it emphasizes the destruction in a lot of ways.
I think something we really haven't touched on is, you know, Kayla and everything that goes on with her, you know, forcibly causing Kayla's suicide, essentially, and ousting her from a program, and mentioning how she's not one of them and she had to let them go, and hearing her scream and being haunted. And, you know, much more than a cancel culture movie, I believe this is a movie about, you know, the decisions that we all make, and the haunting nature and aspect that they prove time and time again about how the past is the past. And even though you may control time, you cannot control what has already been done. And that will forever be something that Lydia and herself cannot control, and she cannot change what the past was. And everything with Kayla, which seems in any other film would be the main driving force, the main engine behind the movie. And it is so secondary and third and fourth to what we are experiencing elsewhere, which I think is just, you know, speaks volumes about what the movie actually does so well. I was going to pick that scene, Alden. So I just want to say, great minds think alike. This is wonderful. I think that is a Tarmy baby. We did it. I think it's an absolutely stunning scene. I am going to go with arriving in Thailand. I think, and I'm going to cheat because I'm going to pick like the 20 minutes that we get arriving in Thailand. I think obviously the Juilliard scene is very intriguing and fun and startling to look at and to understand and to break down. But I think her arriving in Thailand really starts to open that box where you start asking all these questions. Was it what Bernstein said? Was it the addiction to the music that is able to kind of identify emotions that words cannot? Is that what Lydia Tarr really wants? Is that what she has been after this entire time? Is it the power? Is it the world? What is it for her? And I don't think we really know. I think that is part of the mystery, and the ominous nature that we're left with is trying to decide. She has to go, and she is canceled, but she continues to seek out this type of stuff. And there's one moment she's kind of traveling on the river, and she sticks her hand in the river and says like, oh, we should stop and go for a swim. And her tour guide mentions there's crocodiles in the water. And she says, like this far inland. And he mentions they're from a Marlon Brando movie, and all he says is they survive. Yeah. And the first time around, I was like, that's odd. Like, that's kind of a throwaway, like whatever. And then this time I was like, that is fucking incredible. That like that we see this massive arc and scope of like crocodiles surviving from a world that once was, from a movie that once was, from a person who's nothing but a legend status at this point in time, and it still is there, which is, you know, impacting this culture and this world and all of these people and just the many layers that goes into. So I'm going to pick that. Let's do our favorite lead actresses before we get out of here. So every episode of the pod, we talk about, you know, a favorite kind of blank category through the years. This time we're doing lead actress. Obviously, we have Cate Blanchett, who is a very strong front runner. We've got Michelle Yeoh this year for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, Ana de Armas in Blonde, and I'm Andrea Riseborough in To Leslie, the movie that made $28,000 at the box office and had a real quote-unquote grassroots campaign that the Academy was maybe going to do something about. Who knows?
They were
absolutely crazy things. So we already talked about who we think will win in this category this year. Ben, I'll start with you. Favorite lead actress win throughout history, man. We just did an Oscars draft. We recorded an Oscars draft, and this was one of the categories. So I feel like we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm curious.
Yeah, we have. For that draft, I ended up going with Reese in Walk the Line.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely want to mention that. But some of the other ones, I think Kathy Bates in Misery is just like terrifying. She's so good in that movie. Natalie Portman in Black Swan was obviously fantastic. I even liked last year's winner with Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Like I think she gave a really good performance.
Yeah.
Nice.
But the last one I want to shout out is just Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday. That was a movie that, like, as a kid, my grandma was like, "Oh, that's my favorite movie. We should watch that." And I was like, "Well, it's black and white, and you like it, so I'm probably not going to." But yeah, we watched it. And I was like, "Oh, this is actually great." So that's the one that I would definitely shout out and probably pick as my top is Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday.
That's
fantastic,
solid, real good. Alden, what do you got?
Yeah, some that I want to mention as well. I have to mention Jennifer Lawrence in Silver Linings. I love Silver Linings Playbook. I think that was her sort of thunderous sort of solidification of everything that she could be and continues to be. And I think she's ended up having such an interesting resume. And I think her performance as Tiffany there is really magnetic. Marlee Matlin in Children of a Lesser God will break your heart. For people that have never seen that, definitely go back and check that out. Marlee Matlin, legend. Another legend, Jodie Foster, Silence of the Lambs, which I already mentioned, being a Big Five winner, having all 5 of the major categories, the last one to do it, 1991. And there are a couple of more that I really love, but I think the one I'm going to come down on as my favorite is the win in 2014 from my favorite actress ever, Julianne Moore for Still Alice. I think Julianne Moore is the best possibly to ever do it. I think she's just phenomenal. It is probably the greatest compliment to PTA's genius ever, that I think he's had the best ever actor and the best ever actress in multiple of his movies. In Boogie Nights, you had PSH and Julianne. In Magnolia, you had PSH and Julianne. She's incredible in Still Alice. Is unnervingly good in that movie. This was hard to pick, though. I will say, good. When you start to scroll through those names, you're like, damn, this is amazing.
A lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of heaters. And I think for me, like, I'm on the opposite spectrum, like opposite side of the scale than you, Alden. Like, I'm scrolling through these and I'm like, fuck, like, I really kind of haven't seen a lot of these movies. Like, and I don't know, that's just like me being like still a quote unquote like infant in my cinematography, addiction years over here. I did end up going with $1 Million Baby is what I chose for my movie. Hilary Swank for the draft with you, Ben. I think is excellent. Obviously Natalie Portman for the Black Swan, like the one Darren Aronofsky movie that I like, and got her a nom and a win, which is incredible. And I really liked Emma Stone in La La Land, which is fascinating.
Do you like that movie?
I just like it was fine, but I think Emma Stone was really a standout. Right, and I just everything about her.
You haven't mentioned that movie before. I didn't know if you'd seen it. So
yeah, I just try. I try to spread the wealth. Honestly, I try to only talk about things one movie at a time. Right. Gotcha. So I do like Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye too. I think that's worth noting. I think she was really good. The last thing I wanted to say, Frances McDormand, 3 noms, 3 wins, which is like the only person to be batting 100 for like noms and wins, at least in like the actress category, which is pretty unreal.
Because even DDL is not batting because he has the Phantom Thread loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that'd be an interesting stat. I'm curious if she's the only one that's like 100% on her wins and noms. Not up this year. So we'll see. We'll see if she gets something else. You know, could have been up for Women Talking if she would have been in more than like 90 seconds of it, maybe. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Any closing thoughts about Tar? Alden, Ben, anything you want to say before we inevitably do the Patreon episode of the Tarmy Nation, you know, Tarmy Rise Up episode?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things, right, where like it's a 2 hour 40 minute, 2 hour 45. It's so dense. There are things that we haven't even scratched. The whole sequences that we haven't discussed because of time. I would like to say, just in terms of people that have been largely unsung from the season, just because it's been so packed. Sophie Kauer, just this debut as Olga, having not acted before. It's always frustrating when you see somebody that's that good at multiple things where you're like, oh, your first time, you're just going to hang with Cate Blanchett in a key supporting role. She's great and continues so many of the themes. And I really want to pick up the vinyl that is credited to her and Cate Blanchett, the Mahler vinyl and everything. So I'll have to see how much that goes for.
Ooh. That's a good clue. We gotta start doing rewatchable style and add it on here. If you could have a memorabilia item, like what do you pick? Tar is a great. That's a hard one. That's a hard one for Tar. Ben, any closing thoughts for Tar?
I'm just glad to not have to talk about this movie with you again until the Oscars happen. I'm gonna block that word in our chats. No more Tar.
Every time I tweet about Tar, it's just like, I'll just tag you in everything and just be like, hey Ben, by the way, talking about Tar real quick.
Well, if Tar wins Best Picture, you might have to quit the show.
Yeah,
probably,
because you'll never stop hearing about it.
Yeah, that's true. I'll be ready to take my spot, I guess.
if Tar wins Best Picture, we do a spin-off pod. We go JMO style. We do a spin-off pod only about Tar. We break down every single scene about Tar. That's what people can expect. Alden, thanks for coming on the pod. Thanks so much for being here, for talking about Tar. I have loved this conversation. If people want to find more of you on social media and other podcasts, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you can find me at that Alden Diaz, ThataldenDiaz, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Hive. Probably more places once Twitter collapses because it gets closer every day, it feels
every day.
And yeah, you can find me on Ahch-To Radio Star Wars podcast, Casually talking about Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings, Willow, and other fantasy properties, popping up, writing different places. I'm going to be hopefully doing some more stuff at StarTrek.com soon.
Nice.
And some other things. And if you're going to be at Star Wars Celebration London, find me and let's drink.
Oh yeah!
Wow, that sounds awesome. My very, very last question, Alden. I ask every single week. Where do you stand on Babylon? You part of the Babylon Hive or what?
I do love Babylon.
Fuck yes, you do. Let's go, Ben.
Chazelle does not miss for me.
We grow stronger every day. The Hive rises, Ben. One by one.
Babylon, unfortunately, not nominated for Best Picture, but Tar is. So let us know if you think Tar should or will win Best Picture. Also, let us know if you'll subscribe to our new podcast, Talking Tar with Ben and Ethan. If I lose, I guess I got to figure out what mine is if I win.
Summer 2023 debut episode.
We're going to be talking Elvis. Let us know on Twitter or Instagram. We are at 24 minutes of A24. Also, we are on YouTube where you can see all 3 of our beautiful faces of the trail of corpses Jade left after that draft. So come check us out on YouTube. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. And as the legendary and immortal Tom Cruise says, see you at the movies.